Hello everyone, Pantoufleee here today for a new video, a preview one, because we are gonna take a look at the STG, a new tier 8 premium Russian medium tank that is gonna start being in test in the 7.3 update. Of course, you gotta understand that if the tank enters testing in the 7.3 update, we will probably not see it before the 7.5 or even the 7.6 update. But we can still talk about it because this tank is actually available in World of Tank PC, and even if the tanks are not going to be similar between World of Tank Blitz and World of Tank PC, we can have some similarities that will allow us to discover the tank, what are the strengths and the weaknesses and all that stuff. So let's not lose too much time and jump directly into it. So before jumping into the armor, we have two things to notice. The first one is that the profile of the tank is really low, therefore it should have an increased camo and it shouldn't be a problem for you to play it sneaky. The second thing to notice is the fact that you have a rear mounted turret. What does it mean? It means that this tank will probably do well in Sidescrape, and it will have a total different playstyle from what we know for the moment for mediums, because I don't think we have any mediums with rear mounted turret in the game yet, or at least at tier 8 or tier 7. I might be wrong, correct me if it's the case. But yeah, that's what is exciting about this tank, the fact that the turret is rear mounted. But is it gonna be a good one? Concerning the gun depression, as we have a rear mounted tank, we could expect the gun depression at the front of the tank not to be the same as, for example, on the sides or the rear. And the cool factor with this tank is that it's not the case. You have 6 degrees of gun depression all around the tank, front included. And what is great about this is that, as I told you, the tank is low profiled, which means even if you only have 6 degrees of gun depression, you should make it quite effective on every kind of terrains due to your tank not being really high. Now that we talked about that, there is something else to analyze. I told you you have a rear mounted turret, so the main question is this tank gonna be good at side scraping? The answer is unfortunately no. If you take a look, for example, it's not that angle here, just look at the angle, it's definitely not that much. If you take a look, it's easy to penetrate, it's literally paper. The only armored part on this tank is the turret, which can actually bounce shots. Not a lot, of course. If people tend to use gold shells, they're gonna penetrate quite easily, but at least you will be able to bounce most shells coming from tier 7s and tier 8 with maybe stock guns or low penetration, these kind of guns. And also if you take it in the gun mantlet, as it's auto bounce most of the time. But yeah, for the side scrape, it's over. It's literally impossible. But why? Why do I think it's still gonna be worth it for the side scrape? I'm gonna tell you. With this tank, it's not about side scraping to actually handle and bounce shots on your side armor. It's all about, for example, imagine there is a wall here, you wait behind the wall, you just go and poke with your tracks here, because if you take a shot like that, it will not penetrate, it will bounce, maybe destroy your tracks, but who cares? And you need to do that, so wait for your enemies to shoot there, and after you go out of your position and you shoot. You're not here to bounce shots, you can't. So that's something you gotta understand when you're playing with this tank. There is nothing such as bouncing shots in Sidescrape. I might have been a little bit too harsh concerning the armor profile of this tank. It's not that you can side scrape, you can, but let's say that the angle of effectiveness is really low. To get an auto ricochet, you need to angle it like that, not much. So if you do that and you put your gun out on this side here, you can still get penetrated in that lower plate here. Therefore, if you're in side scrape, you need to be able to get a position from which you angle like that maximum, knowing they can still penetrate you here and here, and you need to put your gun right there at minimum without showing this plate here. And I don't think it's gonna be a good side scrape tank, simply because when you have to do all that things and think about all that stuff when you're in your regular playstyle, only really good players will have the ability of making it effective in Sidescrape. because for the rest of the players, they will not think about this while side scraping with it. They will over angle it and just get wrecked. So overall, if we had to sum up a little bit the characteristics of the tank, starting with the gun, we could say that it has a good alpha damage, around 400, a bad reload time of 12 seconds, a gun dispersion that is going to be between 0.31 and 0.32, a penetration around 210 millimeters, and 6 degrees of gun depression all around the place. The mobility should be good as well, as your top speed is around 55 km per hour, but most of the time on hard terrains and soft terrains you will go around 50. The traverse speed is equal to 47 degrees per second, so overall the mobility of the tank is definitely a great one. Summing up the pros and the cons: for the pros, you have a low profile, a really good camo, a good mobility, a good alpha damage and a good accuracy. And for the cons, a bad reload time, hard to make its armor effective, especially in Sidescrape, a low profile with a bad gun depression, which means this tank is gonna be a bad one on hills. What do I mean by that? It's cool to have a low profile, but when you have to get into a mountain or anything like that and play from an all down position, when you only have 6 degrees of gun depression and a rear mounted turret, you're gonna struggle. For those of you interested, this is how I think we would have to play it. For the moment we don't know yet, as it's not out in World of Tanks Blitz. But my guess is snapshotting while being in Sidescrape. Why snapshotting and not just the regular Sidescrape? Because as we saw in the armor profile, this tank doesn't stand a chance into bouncing shells when it's Sidescraping. And for the second cool part, probably the side hugging. What do I mean by that? You have a really low profile. Therefore, if you stuck your tank to your opponents on the side, you will not be able to get penetrated, simply because you're so low that most tanks at tier 8 will not have the gun depression to be able to shoot at something else than your turret. And here you will just have to wiggle in order to make them bounce, because there are not a lot of tier 8s that actually carry more than 240 millimeters of penetration. Before ending this video, I want to add 1 or 2 words about this tank. Personally, I don't think this tank is gonna break the meta or anything like that, simply because it's balanced. It's really balanced. It has its pros and cons, which will make you love it or hate it. I don't think we'll see any in-betweens regarding this tank. I also want you to understand that this tank is definitely not for new players, as its playstyle requires advanced strategies that you need to master before even thinking about buying this tank. Now, for those of you who already own the Chimera or any broken medium tank at tier 8 and you're hesitating on is it really worth it to buy this tank, plot twist, it's not. The Chimera does everything the STG does, but in a better way. So for those of you who own the Chimera, do not bother buying the STG. Save your gold for maybe a Christmas event or something like that. Now, if I'm correct, this tank being not broken, I'm not expecting Wargaming to put it in crates. But as they put in crates the T25 Pilot one, which is a huge shit, we might see it in crates just because Wargaming wants to surf on the hype of a new tank. I hope they will not do that, because it would be really unfair, because the STG is definitely not the kind of tanks you expect to be in crates. So if it's in crates, it's definitely not worth gambling, guys. It's important for me to remind you that. And I want to end the video saying that I based myself on what I found about the tank on World of Tanks PC. Of course, it's subject to change in Blitz. I modified 1 or 2 characteristics of the tank from World of Tanks PC in order to make it fit in World of Tanks Blitz, because most of the time we can see a pattern that developers are using in order for them to balance their tanks, even if sometimes it's not the case. So don't take what I say for granted. It's possible that they make the STG completely broken. We will review it anyway when it's gonna be out, but for the moment it seems to be a pretty balanced tank, and I want to applaud Wargaming for that initiative if it's really the case. This video is now over. Before going away, guys, if you could tell me in the comments if you're gonna buy the STG or not, simply for my personal information, because I'm curious, that would be awesome. And I'm gonna see you soon for a new video.